Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155 from UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not.
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championship, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championship, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Arnel Dolion, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you're doing fine for yourself during a time of major uncertainty. Alright then, so let's get on with the news brief today. So for the news brief, I got a plethora of stuff to cover right now. The world of mixed martial arts is never consistent, ever. It never really is. And also, by the way, I'm currently right now in a new studio. I've been going through the process of moving in Los Angeles, so while everyone else is moving out of LA, I'm moving in here in LA. I don't know if I'm a crazy person or not. Everyone here is leaving. I'm coming in. City of Angels. I love this place, but yeah, things generally in the world of mixed martial arts really isn't consistent. First off, we got Tony Ferguson. We don't know what is going on with Tony Ferguson. We hear multiple reports on what's going on. He was going to be the stand-in for the Nurmagomedov Gaethje fight. He's going to fight Michael Chandler. Is he going to fight against Dustin Poirer? Dustin Poirer is offered to fight against Conor McGregor. What is going on with Tony freaking Ferguson? Are we ever going to have Ferguson versus Khabib? I will tell you, no. It ain't happening. If it hasn't happened at all in the past, has it been like 4 years already? 3 years? If it hasn't happened in the past couple years, I don't expect it to happen now in the near future. So it is coming in by ESPN, written in by Mark Ramondi. Headline being, UFC's Tony Ferguson wants to fight again in 2020. Hints at move up at welterweight. Tony Ferguson would still like to fight again in the year 2020, even if it's in wrestling, grappling, or boxing. The UFC Lightweight star said in a video interview with ESPN's Errol Hawani, published Wednesday, that he'd like to compete before the end of the year. We're only 2 months away before the end of the year, man. You're gonna do that, provided he is adequately compensated. Ferguson fell to Justin Gaethje in an interim title fight back at UFC 249 on May 9, the promotion's first fight back after a nearly 2-month hiatus due to the coronavirus pandemic. The loss snapped a 12-fight winning streak and was Ferguson's first defeat since 2012. But Tony Ferguson said he's in a better place than he was then and is ready for a turn. I will be competing, Ferguson said. People will see me one way or another being active. Ferguson, who said he'd be open to other ventures like Chael Sonnen's Submission Underground or Wrestling Underground grappling events, was tied to an October 24 contender bout with Dustin Poirer at UFC 254. That fight never came to fruition, however. Poirier said last month that he couldn't come to terms with the UFC. Ferguson told ESPN that he never really came to an official agreement with the UFC either for that fight or with other new signee and former Bellator champion Michael Chandler. UFC President Dana White wants to speak to me, Ferguson said. He wants to go out there and be like, Tony is going to take this fight. Bro, we're not friends. I never said we were friends. It's just business, right? I'm where when you need me. Seriously, man, I'm a contractor. I do my thing. I love you, fam. I love the UFC and all that, but I'm not just a piece of meat out there. UFC Lightweight champion Khabib Nurmagomedov will be looking to unify his title against Justin Gaethje at UFC 254 later this month. White told SportsIllustrated.com earlier this week that he's attempting to get Ferguson another fight, and that if he wins that one, he could fight for the lightweight title against the winner of Nurmagomedov versus Gaethje. A bout between Nurmagomedov and Ferguson has been booked 5 times and has fallen apart every single time. The two were supposed to fight each other for the undisputed title back at UFC 249, but Nurmagomedov left from his training camp in California to go back to his home of Dagestan, Russia during the pandemic after a miscommunication with the UFC. If Khabib does beat Gaethje, you get Tony Ferguson another fight, which we're working on right now, White told SportsIllustrated.com, and hopefully that fight with Khabib happens because I know people want to see it. I don't think I've ever seen a fight fall apart as many times as those two. It almost scares me to make the fight again. What's going to happen? And Astrid comes to Earth. That's the level of bad this thing is. For his part, Ferguson said he'd like to fight Nurmagomedov because the fans want to see it. I'll tell you right now, I definitely want to see that fight happening. Just because that fight has fallen apart so many times. But Ferguson said he won't wait for it to happen. Ferguson tweeted in support of Nurmagomedov when the champion's father died in July. He doesn't wish ill on his rival, but now it's back to business, Ferguson said. I don't wait for effing nobody, Ferguson said. Khabib, he can retire, he can do whatever he wants. I'm not gonna hold his hand. I'll be there for him as a brother in effing arms across the mat, but that's all I can say. If there's no clear path for him at lightweight, Ferguson could move up to welterweight or even middleweight for other potential matchups. So Ferguson goes on to say, I got welterweight and I've got the frame to go up to middleweight. Ferguson said, I like to go out there and compete. Everyone forgets that I used to knock everyone out back at 170. Ferguson believes he did the UFC a solid by stepping up early in the pandemic when Nurmagomedov was no longer the opponent. Ferguson says, you're only as good as your last fight. So what is going on with Tony Ferguson? Well, now we're getting reports here that he could be the guy fighting against the winner of Gaethje versus Khabib. Which makes the most sense. I believe that it makes the most sense, as I believe. I believe it's only fair for Ferguson to go and fight for the title. Even though the guy just lost his recent fight here, the dude has been such a proper company man. He really has. Him fighting against Gaethje, more than anything else, like him having a solo prep time. Tony Ferguson, throughout the entire process, the confusing process of the coronavirus pandemic, easily could have been like, you know what? I don't want to fight. This is messed up. I don't know what's going on. Everything's in disarray right now. I'm not going to fight against Gaethje. And Gaethje versus Ferguson, I said in my opinion, was one of the best fights of the entire year. It was a total scrapyard fight. It was great. I put in the same tier of Adesanya versus Paulo Costa in terms of near popularity there. But yeah. So I wish to see Tony Ferguson fight somebody. Now he says he's going to fight somebody in the year of 2020 or compete. I do not believe Ferguson will compete against somebody in the UFC and the Octagon for the rest of the year of 2020. I don't believe that. I do believe that Tony Ferguson has been offered contracts, or has been given fights against people, and Ferguson declined that, because from this interview he's saying, you know what, no, I'm done being the company man here, I should get what I deserve. I should be getting the big fights. And so, for as much as I would love to see Charles Oliveira versus Tony Ferguson, I think that fight would be absolutely stellar. Oliveira versus Ferguson, that would be great. But from Tony Ferguson's standpoint, he can be like, you know what, I gotta fight the big boys here. In terms of the lower end of the card here, I think Dustin Poirer versus Ferguson makes the most sense. But as of right now, we don't know what's going on. The lightweight division right now is in complete disarray. We got a current champion in Khabib, who could potentially, all signs are pointing that Khabib is going to retire if he goes 30-0. So if he defeats Justin Gaethje and he wins the other fight beyond that, who we're still unsure who he's going to be fighting next, because the lightweight division is pretty confusing, he could retire, and Khabib would be the second, third, fourth. So this would be, I think, the fourth title being relinquished in the year 2020. No, fifth. Because, no. John Jones vacated his belt. Henry Cejudo vacated both of his belts. Alright, there's that idea. So that'll be, so it'll be the fourth title being relinquished. But if you look at the grand scheme of what is happening right now in the current UFC divisions right now, where you got Amanda Nunes carrying the featherweight belt for a division that's pretty much non-existent. That to me is very strange right now. And then we got Daniel Cormier still, he might be fighting against light heavyweights right now. It's confusing. It's really confusing right now on the current status of the current champions. But Khabib, he could be leaving. We have Conor McGregor. Nobody knows what's going on with Conor McGregor. Nobody knows. And then we have Dustin Poirier, who, from the sources that I'm getting right now, from sources that I'm reading, apparently doesn't want to go fight because he believes he deserves more money. And I think he deserves minimum $100,000 to $200,000 pay raise. I think that's totally fine. That's totally decent for Dustin Poirier. Because I'm seeing right now, signs are pointing towards Dustin Poirier aiming for retirement. There's that happening. Tony Ferguson wants to compete, but he doesn't want to compete anybody who's outside the top 5. We got fighters out there who are outside the top 5 who want to compete fighters who are within the top 5, but fighters within the top 5 don't want to compete with fighters outside the top 5 because that's going to put them on UFC, on ESPN, or Fight Night events. So right now, fighters have so much freaking leverage, and I like this. I like that fact that fighters have leverage. I do. In the National Basketball Association, an issue that a lot of people have with NBA is that the athletes and players nowadays, whether it be baseball, NBA, football, hockey, have too much free agency. They have too much agency. They have too much leverage. And now, in the lightweight division specifically, there's a whole lot of leverage going right now. Poirier, he doesn't want to fight unless he gets, the money he wants. Ferguson wants to fight only with people within a certain range of the rankings in his division. Conor McGregor, we don't know what's going on with him. Khabib, he wants to retire. The only person here who are amongst the top of the light division here that's actually pretty consistent and we know what to expect out of him is Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje. And also, let's not forget, Nick Diaz could be making a comeback. He could be competing at lightweight. And we also have Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal, which is rumored to happen. And neither of them are expected to go compete for the title anytime soon. So the lightweight division right now, it is in complete disarray. Would it make sense for Ferguson to go move up in the rankings? Yes. I believe so. What sucks, though, is that people want to see Ferguson versus Khabib. People want to see Ferguson against I want to see him against Oliveira. Him against Gaethje again. Him against Conor. Him against Dustin Poirier. There's a lot of fun matchups happening in the light division that Tony Ferguson can participate in. But it's not happening. There's a lot of confusion happening right now in the lightweight division. And strangely enough, though, I remember in a recent interview where Dana White says, you know what, if you don't want to fight, okay then, you don't have to fight, but we're going to look towards other people. Alright then. So there's Michael Chandler. And apparently Michael Chandler, instead of Tony Ferguson or Conor, is the stand-in for Gaethje versus Khabib. That right there doesn't make all that much sense. It doesn't. I think Michael Chandler needs to get a tune-up fight before he becomes a stand-in. At least that's what I believe. More than anything else, I believe in Charles Oliveira's assessment. That's kind of ridiculous that Michael Chandler is getting a potential title shot in his first night in the UFC. And here's another thing we gotta think about when it comes to the lightweight division. What is going on with Khabib after the fight against Gaethje? It was reported earlier on, this coming in from Dana himself, that it was going to be Khabib Nurmagomedov being an Ultimate Fighter coach against Conor McGregor right after his fight against Justin Gaethje, if he were to defeat Justin Gaethje. Like, there's so many things going on right now. Khabib could potentially fight against Michael Chandler after Gaethje. What would happen if Khabib were to not defeat Gaethje? What goes on with him? Are we still going to see Khabib versus Conor happening for the Ultimate Fighter? What's going on there? So Khabib was going to be competing against Conor at the Ultimate Fighter again, at the Ultimate Fighter revamp. That would have been great TV. I would definitely have watched it. Many people would have watched it. But because of Conor McGregor's stuff right now with him, because he wants to go fight against Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather, he wants to do boxing, he's calling out, Dana White, he's putting his DMs out there in the open. Khabib is upset about that. And so now we have Conor McGregor, who may or may not still be part of the Ultimate Fighter. We don't know who's the opposing coaches. If Justin Gaethje were to defeat Khabib, we could see maybe Justin Gaethje versus Conor McGregor as the Ultimate Fighter coaches. They could be the Ultimate Fighter coaches. And then what's going on with Khabib? We also, don't forget, there's rumors out there for Khabib versus Floyd Mayweather. That would be a really fun fight. Mayweather would definitely win that. Pacquiao versus Conor, that could be a thing. I'm Filipino, so I have to watch that fight. There's a lot more money in stake right now for Conor versus Mayweather or Conor versus Pacquiao. Khabib says that he wants to fight against GSP. His manager says it should be Khabib versus George St. Pierre. And George St. Pierre apparently has been offered contracts and the door has been open, but he's thinking about it. So yeah, lightweight division in complete disarray right now, and hopefully in the coming weeks, things will be a lot more clear. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back right after the short break here. See you soon.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. I am here with the news brief today, and let's talk about fighters being cut. So, the Contender Series for Dana White, a lot of fighters, many fighters have been given contract. I think we're up to like 15 now. Last time I checked, which was like a week ago, we had 15 new fighters coming to the UFC, and they're all just primarily coming from the Contender Series, and that's not including free agents. And, you know, the women's fighters competing in Invicta, because we're always getting new women's fighters from Invicta coming in. So, this is coming from MMA Fighting. UFC releases Ben Sassoli after receiving 22-month jail sentence. Nadia Kassim and Quan Townsend also are cut. So, hard-hitting heavyweight Ben Sassoli was cut from UFC promotion, officials told MMA Fighting. Sassoli, who fought twice under Inside the Octagon after competing at Dana White's Contender Series in 2019, was recently sentenced to 22 months in jail in Melbourne after punching a man in the face outside a bar. The Australian Association Press reported, according to the report, Sassoli pleaded guilty to recklessly causing serious injury and can request to be released on parole after serving 11 months in prison. Sassoli, who's 7-3 with 2 no contests, was in the Ultimate Fighter 28 cast in 2018, but only joined the UFC the next year to face Greg Hardy. So he lost the decision, but the result was later overturned to a no contest due to Hardy's illegal use of an inhaler. Still can't believe that. Sassoli lost by first round knockout to Marco Rogero de Lima back in February. Sassoli is not the only Australian fighter to go the promotion. Though as the UFC recently terminated Nadia Kassim's deal, the 24-year-old flyweight fought 3 times in the octagon between 2017 and 2019, losing to Montana De La Rosa and Ji-Yeon Kim after a debut win over Alex Chambers. Her record stands at 5-2. Daquan Townsend, who is 21-12, also parted ways with the UFC after a recent loss to Duska Todorovic. The Tarantula, a 34-year-old fighter who competed at both middleweight and at light heavyweight in the UFC, went winless in his 4 octagon appearances, losing to Dasha Lungbena, Bevan Lewis, Devin Clark, and Todorovic, which is sad because he just competed last week. And now he's being cut. You know, whatever money he made, hopefully, it's good for him. Hopefully. So this is actually an interesting article here about OnlyFans here, because I was reading up OnlyFans. By the OnlyFans, it took me a while to think about this, about OnlyFans, but I have no problem with OnlyFans, as a sense that it's a great opportunity for people to go make money, for women specifically to go make money. I get it. From what I've seen right now, I think there was there's a tweet out there. It could not be verified, but somebody said that through 1 week of OnlyFans, they made about $15,000. they made about $15,000 here. And I myself am surprised, because OnlyFans is nothing new. It's just, there's a weird nerd culture geek aspect to OnlyFans that's very bizarre. And I looked online, and apparently, I didn't know this actually, but you could pay specifically girls to pretend to be nerdy and geeky to go out with you. I know the idea of like paying money to go get like girls to go out with you has been a thing. The same thing also applies to dudes. But OnlyFans, it's in this weird spectrum in that it specifically applies towards nerdy, geeky dudes who are like in their early to late 20s, and if they're really creepy, early 30s, who are into these like cutesy girls who don't say anything interesting on their Twitter names. And I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but this is so weird because from MMAfight.com, the headline being the business of MMA, the explosion of OnlyFans and combat sports, UFC 1 trailer and more. So thanks to the global coronavirus pandemic, Brett Rawlings has only fought one time in 2020. And while she's holding out hope to book another matchup before the end of the year, nothing is guaranteed right now. After sitting out for the past 8 months, the 31 Australian veteran would normally be freaking out about her finances, even with the regular fight schedule while competing in major promotions like the UFC or Bellator. There are more than a few athletes who essentially live paycheck to paycheck when competing in mixed martial arts. That is true. There are other... Okay, so if your goal is to make money in mixed martial arts, you better be a part of the 1%. You better be it. Because you might as well just be an engineer. Actually, I got a friend... I was hanging out with my friend last week, actually 2 weeks ago. It was on my birthday. And she, right off college, was given the starting salary of $102,000 per year. And within the span of 2 years, she was able to, like, save up $200,000 per year because her mom was also helping out with her finances. So she made... In California, at the very least, the average salary is about $65,000 per year. So she made essentially 3 times as much money as the regular everyday Joe in the span of 2 years. Which is insane. Absolutely insane she can go do that. So, I have another friend, I know somebody who at 19 years old, and I got another friend who at 24 years old was already being paid upwards of $70 per hour. If your goal is to go make money, and you choose your career to be mixed martial arts, you better have a side hustle, man. You better have it. So Rawlings has been forced to go into panic mode like other fighters have with their bank account, largely because of the OnlyFans page she started earlier this year. For those unaware, OnlyFans is a subscription-based website where content creators can post photos and videos or review music with fans, typically shelling out a monthly fee to see what's on a person's page. Okay. So, with YouTube-style sites essentially giving away videos and photos for free, many sex workers saw profits plummet. That's where a site like OnlyFans started to flourish. It's so weird. OnlyFans is such a weird thing. I think someone made it best. It's like it's PG porn. Yeah, like it's PG porn, but there's more money in PG porn because a lot of people. Here's the thing: the people who are dwelling around the internet, for the most part, and like the biggest weirdos out there, are the ones who are on Reddit and like in their early to mid 20s. It's so strange. It is so strange. Like only you are rewarded more for doing less in OnlyFans, and so I'm happy for Becky over here because Rawlings started her page back in January, and she says the benefit to her has been huge, especially with her fight career largely put on hold due to the pandemic. She goes and say, "Look, it's been a game changer for me," Rawlings said when speaking to MMA Fighting. "I'd be stressing and freaking out right now. I definitely wouldn't be in the situation I'm in right now if I didn't start my OnlyFans. I took the plunge, and I've never really been one to care about what people think or say. I put myself out there, and it's definitely paid off. Normally, I'd be freaking out right now if I haven't fought yet and made some money, so it's given me an opportunity to make money elsewhere. So it's definitely saved me during this. It's been good. I'm enjoying it. I've always been good about putting stuff online and with social media, so it's allowed me to get more exclusive data." To be clear, Rawlings controls every aspect of her OnlyFans page, from the photos and videos to the message she exchanges with subscribers. She also reaps a benefit when it comes to money being made with OnlyFans, with creators keeping 80% of their profits from the site. I like having control of everything. So Rawlings is essentially becoming a content creator. Subscription fees can change So range could be from $5 upwards to $50 a month. Enough, your Netflix, your Hulu, your Amazon Prime, whatever like monthly thing you're paying, whether it be like, what's in the Hungry Man, whatever. Is that thing? Oh yeah, it's like Fresh Hungry. My sister's doing that where she's paying like $50 or like $60 a month to go and get like these ingredients that she's being given every week that you can go save up a lot more if you go to a local grocery store and got the ingredients yourself. Whatever. It shouldn't cost $60 for you to cook potatoes, salad, and steak when you can go to your local grocery store and you can buy a steak for under $10 with mashed potatoes for about $5 and you get it really good and it's fresh also, tastes great, whatever. That's my sister. And so, UFC athletes such as Jessica Ai, Claudia Cadell, and Hannah Goldie currently boast pages on OnlyFans. UFC Octagon girls Brittany Palmer and Aaron Celeste have also set up through their OnlyFans pages. Other fans like Barb Horchak and Katarina Lenner also boast their OnlyFans pages. Former UFC fighter and current PFL athlete Cindy Dendoas launched her OnlyFans also page during the COVID-19 pandemic. Denoy goes on to say, I lost my gym during this COVID lockdown. No help from our government. Fights are cancelled, leaving me with big financial problems. I decided to make an OnlyFans so I can collect the money to reopen the gym and give the youngsters their home back. I think it's cool to see other fighters and especially athletes embrace the site and hustle on something that we can. And yeah, I agree with this. So the general article is talking about how so one prominent MMA manager requested anonymity when speaking to MMA Fighting and said that one of their athletes was able to take home $15,000 to $25,000 in a single month from their OnlyFans page. Note, there are fighters out there in the UFC where this is considered big money, where you're making $75,000 per fight and you're fighting 2 times. So in the span of 2 times, you are making potentially $150,000. A fighter can make $150,000 competing for the UFC if they have a really good contract, or they can go do an OnlyFans account and they can make $20,000. Remember, this is MMA fighters. MMA fighters are not all that popular. There are a bunch of way more popular people out there, a bunch of gamer girls and Twitch thoughts who don't really say anything but play video games really badly on Twitch, who can go make upwards of $15,000 in a single week. There are people in OnlyFans who make $120,000 per month. Meanwhile, there are fighters out there like Chael Sonnen who'll be like, man, I made a lot of money, man. I made $120,000 off this fight. Like, it's like the disparity of... One good thing about being a young person who's into MMA is that you're... And also being a huge fan of basketball and boxing. And also having friends who work in the Silicon Valley area. And I got some friends who work in the art field. I pretty much understand the levels of money. And it's very subjective what you prefer, what you would want money. Like, of course, everyone wants to make 6 figures. But to a lot of people, man, 6 figures is pretty much an unattainable goal. There are people who work... Like, I have a friend who is super proud of himself for making $4,000 over the span of a month. Now, to some people, $4,000 is a lot of money. To some people can make $4,000 in a span of a week. I got friends who make $4,000 in a single week. And I think that's something that... it's also going on Vince McMahon right now, where there's a women's wrestler for the WWE. Her name is Paige, who makes $500,000 per year on top of her right now guaranteed salary she's making as a pro wrestler, which could be potentially maybe $750,000, maybe $1 million. So let's say $1 million. She's making $1 million being a pro wrestler for the WWE, and she's making an extra $500,000 playing video games and is talking to people on Twitch for just a couple hours a day. So yeah, in 2020, everyone nowadays has a side hustle. Like, here's the thing. So my side hustle is doing food delivery, is doing Postmates, and not joking, it's nearly impossible to deliver food and not see somebody walk out from the door, and right behind them is a super advanced high-tech computer stuff where they are obviously streaming. Like, they got the huge headphones on, they got the webcams going on, they got OBS or XSplit going on in their monitor. Yeah, people are doing side hustles all the freaking time right now. And it's really interesting to see this. I like the fact that there are a lot of fighters in the world of mixed martial art, in the world of UFC. Actually, Paige Van Zandt, I believe, is a trailblazer in the sense that Paige Van Zandt, I don't know if she has an OnlyFans account, but if she did, she'd be making a lot more money. And that Paige Van Zandt would constantly be complaining about the fact that she just wasn't making enough money in a run in the UFC. And I think right now, I personally believe that if there were more fighters out there who would just blow off Dana White and be like, you know what, I don't want to compete for the UFC because I have my side hustle here that I can go make a lot of money on. I don't need to compete for you. I'm leaving. That's one of the good things about Dana White's Contender Series, is that he can give these like low ball offers to people, and then they'll accept it, where they'll make somewhere of like $30,000 per fight, and then they're gonna fight maybe 2 or 1 time, so they make $60,000 in a single year, compared to, you know, somebody doing an OnlyFans account who can make $60,000 within the span of just 3 months. Yeah, so I'm always supportive of people, of fighters. I like Quinta. He does real estate. Chael Sonnen does other stuff also. Rich Franklin did teaching. I'm always supportive of fighters when they are capable of making money elsewhere, considering the fact that the MMA and the world of UFC doesn't offer that much money in the first place. So good on them for the side hustle, and if they're making money and they're happy, I'm all supportive of it. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Coming back right after the short break here. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So it is coming in by SBNation.com, also from the Schmo Zone. Whether or not you're into the Schmo Zone's gimmick and character, that's on you. But the headline being, Valentina Shevchenko predicts Rose Namajunas will defeat Weili Zhang with little trouble. So it is coming in from the Schmo Zone podcast. Valentina Shevchenko goes and say, I know Rose and I train with her. So I'm going to say that if Rose going to be in the same physical and mental condition that I know her, she is going to win easy. She predicted Rose Namajunas winning, but after a while, Shevchenko backtracked on her easy comment. She says, well, not easy, but she will beat her. Weili is tough as well, and she don't want to lose, and she is going to prepare. Not easy, but she is going to win. Weili Zhang has proven to be a dominant combatant, winning 21 straight fights, as of now, Rose Namajunas. She's coming back after her victory over Jessica Andrade. The fight has not yet been finalized, but is expected to take place either late 2020. I don't think it'll be late 2020. I think it'll take place early, mid 2021. I think that's when I believe the fight's going to happen. Also, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's not expected to come back till maybe early or mid 2021. So there's a real possibility that she'll be coming back in the mix, and she'll be fighting against somebody maybe like Jessica Andrade or Tatiana Suarez, competing against in the early or mid 2021. That could be really happening there. But for Rose Namajunas versus Weili Zhang, I am hyped for that fight. Dana White says he's targeting for Zhang versus... Yeah, so he's targeting for Zhang and Rose. He says that we're currently working on it right now. He says that we're working on it right now, said Dana White when asked about Zhang. That's the fight we want to make, he said in regards to Namajunas, so we're working on it. Who do I think would win between the two? The footwork of Rose Namajunas is absolutely phenomenal. She looked really good. Okay, so the big red flag for Rose was the fact that if she does get rocked, and there's a chance that she could get overwhelmed when competing, when she gets in the latter half of the round here. Of course, there are definitely some holes in Rose's game when she fought against Jessica Andrade. In the first and second round was all Rose Namajunas, but definitely if that fight she had with Andrade was a 5-round fight, Andrade would be winning the 4th and 5th round. No doubt about that. 3rd round, Andrade won. 4th round, 5th round, definitely Andrade also. If the fight continued, if the momentum carried over from 3rd to 4th and 5th. Now, Rose Namajunas still was able to get the victory. Good on her. But there are some things she has to work on. She has to make sure that she doesn't get overwhelmed by somebody who is stronger than Jessica Andrade, who is a better boxer than Jessica Andrade, and Weili Zhang, who is a tank who will constantly keep pushing forward, like Weili Zhang. So really, this will, without a doubt, be the toughest test of Rose Namajunas' career. Without a doubt, the toughest test for Weili Zhang's career. And if and when these two were to fight each other again in the near future, in 2021, without a doubt, it would be a fight of the year candidate, and it would be as good, if not even better. I say it would be better than Weili Zhang versus Ioana Jędrzejczyk. So it is also coming in by SBNation.com. Dana White suggests Conor McGregor try to steal Israel Adesanya's thunder prior to UFC 53. This is being written in by Adam Gillian Jr. In the days before and after Israel Adesanya successfully defended his middleweight title against Paulo Costa at UFC 253 on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates, when he wasn't accepting Diego Sanchez's retirement fight challenge. Oh yeah, I forgot, because Conor McGregor, there was reports out there he could be fighting against Diego Sanchez. There was reports out there that he's trying to set up a charity bout against Dustin Poirer. That ain't happening. Poirier, don't believe these fighters on Twitter. They don't believe over half the stuff they even say. I don't think we're going to see... Again, no, I'm certain we are not going to see Poirier versus McGregor a charity bout happen. There's also a boxing match between Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor. That is more likely to happen because Manny Pacquiao loves a challenge and Conor McGregor wants to make money. So when asked about McGregor's social media outbursts, White offered up his theory to Sports Illustrated as to why he feels the notorious one has a pattern of doing such things right before a big fight. This was a weird one, Dana White said. This is weird and different than anything he's done before. There's almost a pattern here. When we're about to do a massive fight, and Israel Adesanya broke a ton of records last week in a global massive fight, the day before that fight, he starts announcing he's going to fight this guy and that guy. It's almost like stealing Adesanya's thunder, he continued. But he does it every time, and every time there's a big fight. Then again, McGregor has always been very complimentary and supportive of Adesanya, since they are stablemates at Paradigm Sports Management, so taking some shine away from him wouldn't exactly be conducive of being a team player. The outspoken boss has gone on record to say McGregor would not compete in the year of 2020, though recent reports say that UFC matchmakers have offered him fights in 2020. So, we now know McGregor was offered a fight in the year of 2020 against Poirier. That fight just isn't going to go fall through, so McGregor is pretty much out of commission of the year of 2020. We now know that. It just sucks. It just literally sucks that... Man, and it's really upsetting because I want to see these fights happen. I do. I want to see these fights happen, but there's always so much drama happening. Always is. So this is coming by MMAFan.com. Khabib Nurmagomedov, he explains his strategy to beat Justin Gaethje and reveals prediction for UFC 254 main events. Through 28 fights and 20 victories, Khabib Nurmagomedov has really tried to hide that strategy. He plans to dismantle and otherwise dominate his opponents. So we all know what Khabib's going to do. He's going to wrestle. Khabib says nothing changes, said about his game plan for Gaethje when speaking to reporters during UFC 254 Media Day. I'm going to try to wrestle with him. If he's going to defend my takedowns for a long time, I'm going to try second, third, I'm going to try 100 times. Of course, I'm going to box with him. I'm going to kick with him. It's going to be kickboxing and wrestling mix. If there's one particular area of Gaethje's grappling game that impresses Khabib Nurmagomedov, it's been the ability to stay off the ground with his opponents. Even Gaethje has said in the past that he'll never credit himself with being the best offensive wrestler in the world, but even when he was competing in college, it was incredibly difficult for his opponents to drag him down to the mats. Khabib says, I think he has good wrestling defense, very good wrestling defense, said about Gaethje. He knows how to wrestle, he's wrestled almost all his life, but I don't think the last 5-6 years he used his wrestling how I use. Because I always use my wrestling in training inside the cage, because wrestling and top control, this is what makes me champion. I don't think the last couple of years he's become a very good wrestler. He has the base, like you have when he was a kid, but right now, everything has changed. Of course, he knows how to defend himself if someone tries to take him down, and we all know about his conditioning too. If I'm going to attack him the first 2 rounds, the third round, I think he's going to be finished, because he don't have good conditioning. In addition to his wrestling superiority, Nurmagomedov also feels like he's ultimately just the smarter fighter when matched up against Gaethje. Offensively, Gaethje is a force of nature and inflicts damage onto his opponents like almost no one else in the UFC. According to UFC stats, Gaethje actually absorbs more strikes per minute than he dishes out. The former World Series of Fighting champion is more than willing to take a punch in order to take back. Khabib says, I think my fighting IQ is much better than Justin Gaethje. He's just a tough guy. He likes fighting, he likes blood, he's like a real warrior, but when we talk about fighting IQ, I think my fighting IQ is much better than he has. Of course, Justin can fight, he can go deep, he has heart, but if you're talking fight IQ, I think I am much more better than him. My goal is to make him tired. I'm going to make him tired. This is my goal. Maybe round 3, round 4. My plan is to go and finish him. So, as per usual for a Khabib fight, he's gonna make this to the grind game. He will turn this to a grind out fight. And I'll say right now, this fight will definitely not end via knockout in favor of Justin Gaethje. I just don't reasonably see Khabib getting knocked out. Now, I can be 100% completely wrong in this. For all I know, Gaethje can definitely knock out Khabib. It'd be a shocker. No one would see it coming. The one guy who's putting his betting odds out there in Vegas, he's predicting that maybe in the second, maybe in the third round, he's going to be making a whole lot of money. But in my opinion, how I view it, it is very unlikely of it happening. And I agree with Khabib here. Justin Gaethje, in many of his interviews, you hear about Justin Gaethje, Gaethje doesn't enjoy wrestling. He doesn't. Whenever someone asks him about wrestling, Gaethje always says the same thing. He's like, you know what? I did it when I was in college. I did it when I was in high school. I am happy I'm not doing it again because I do not want to do it again. And every time you look up height packages of Justin Gaethje, it's this weird thing that Gaethje, he's known as a striker, but in the back of your mind, you know that this guy can grapple with the very best. And Gaethje hasn't wrestled anybody in his time in the UFC. So I agree with Khabib's assessment here in that, yes, it's in his mind, Gaethje can definitely wrestle. He knows how to wrestle. He knows what to do. He knows how to sprawl. But is he capable of out-wrestling a guy who primarily wrestles? Now, Gaethje, he has fought against wrestlers or people who can wrestle, but none of them are in the same boat or even in the same league as Khabib. And Khabib saying he's going to win the fight in the third, fourth round, knowing the cardio that Justin Gaethje has, but also knowing how much Khabib smothers his opponents through his wrestling. Yeah, man. I really do believe that Khabib is going to defeat Justin Gaethje, not through the third or fourth round, but I think this fight's going to go by decision. I can see this fight going I can go this fight similar to Usman versus Jorge Masvidal, but a little bit more better for Gaethje. In that, potentially, Gaethje could be winning the fight in the first and second round. I think that's where Gaethje has to win, because according to Khabib, he's not going to be all that aggressive. He's going to focus on his cardio, and he's just going to go grind out Gaethje in the third, fourth, and fifth round. So if there's anywhere Gaethje can go win, it definitely would have to be in the first and second round. And then hopefully, let's go cross our fingers here, that Gaethje's cardio is going to carry over to third, fourth, and fifth round, and he can go win out one of those rounds. I believe Gaethje can win at least one round. He is definitely able to win 2 rounds. We've seen some aspects of it happen where Conor Mcgregor was able to win 1 round off Khabib. Now, can he maintain this consistency? He's a consistent striker, but is he a consistent grappler and wrestler for somebody as good as wrestling as Khabib is. We're going to learn that soon, and I expect this fight to be incredibly fun, incredibly exciting, and I really don't know what to expect of Justin Gaethje. Are we going to see this guy who has this potential to be a great wrestler, but he just doesn't do so? Or are we going to see Khabib Nurmagomedov wrestle this guy for 5 rounds, and it's going to be yet again another dominant victory for Khabib? Only time will tell. The one fighter right now who is hiding in the corner there would be Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler could be the guy replacing Gaethje or Khabib if one of them were to back out due to injury, COVID-19 pandemic, whatever. So this is coming by MMAfighting.com. Morning reports Scott Coker on Michael Chandler signing with the UFC. Scott Coker goes on to say that he's a guy I'm always going to support. So Scott Coker, he's the one running Bellator right now. He's a very strange looking man. He's like the exact opposite of Dana White. He's just like super chill, nice, sweet dude. And so he goes on to say that Michael has been the face of Bellator for the past 10 years, or his whole career pretty much, Coker said. He's had some of the most amazing battles in the history of Bellator. Michael and I talked about this. We said one day he'll come back, and we'll hang your poster up on the rafters, and maybe you'll be the first person inducted into the Bellator Hall of Fame. There would be a few fighters more deserving of such an honor, as Chandler has been arguably the most important fighter in Bellator history, a 3-time lightweight champion. Chandler also holds a number of records in this promotion. Scott Coker goes on to say that he's a guy I'm always going to support. I'm going to watch all of his fights, and what does it say about the quality of fighters in Bellator when a guy like Michael Chandler leaves and gets put right into the immediate title shot conversation, right? It shows you how great these fighters over here are. So once again, Gaethje versus Khabib is going to be happening October 24. So from the moment we're from this recording here, it's only about 20 days away. About like a little bit less than 20 days away. But yeah, Chandler is serving as the backup for the lightweight title bout between Khabib and Gaethje right now. And to be perfectly honest with you, I am not that hyped up Michael Chandler. I'm not hyped up about Chandler because I'm just a lot more hyped up for Khabib and Gaethje more than anything else. I'm more hyped up about that matchup there. I think Chandler versus Ferguson would be a fun fight. Considering the fact that Chandler is not even a top-ranked guy, and Dustin Poirer, a top-ranked guy, doesn't want to fight against Ferguson because of reasons, probably economic ones, Ferguson versus Chandler would make the most sense to me. I think if the UFC really wants to push and book Michael Chandler, a really good fight would be something like Tony Ferguson. You can offer Tony Ferguson the idea that, okay, Ferguson, if you beat Chandler, you get a fight against Khabib or get Justin Gaethje. But right now, according to Dana White, Tony Ferguson has already been offered that. It's a real possibility that we could see Ferguson versus the winner of Gaethje and Khabib. So I don't think there's going to be a number one contenders match coming up any soon for Chandler. So maybe Chandler versus Poirier. I think that is the right match to make. And if they can offer Dustin Poirier enough money, then Dustin Poirier would definitely agree to that. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Come back right after a short break here with the news brief. See you soon.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And we are back. Welcome back to the news brief here. So this is coming in by BJPen.com. Belal Muhammad returns to the octagon later this year against top prospect Sean Brady. This is being written in by Adam Martin. UFC welterweight veteran Belal Muhammad will return to the octagon later this year when he takes on top prospect Sean Brady in a fun matchup. MMAJunkies.com Farah Hanoun reported that the UFC has added the Muhammad vs. Brady matchup in an event that is set to take place on December 19 at the UFC Apex Facility Building in Las Vegas. That event does not currently have a main event announced for it. The only other fight in the card, as far as we know, is Antonio Brigonero against Darren Wynn at middleweight. Look for the UFC to announce a headliner for the event earlier next week. Muhammad 17-3 is arguably the most underrated fighter among the welterweights in the UFC today. Despite an impressive record in the UFC 8-3, Muhammad finds himself just outside the top 15. Muhammad has notable career wins over Lyman Good, Chris Leonard, Tim Means, and Randy Brown, though with losses to Jeff Neal and Vicente Leque. He is also a former Titan FC welterweight champion. The 30-year-old Muhammad is a fan favorite who is currently riding a 3-fight win streak. Brady is one of the most impressive prospects in the UFC welterweight division. The 27-year-old Brady is 3-0 in the UFC since making his promotional debut a year ago, with wins over Court McGee, Ismail Narneev, and Christian Aguilera. He is the former Cage Fury FC welterweight champion, and so far in the UFC, he has shown glimpses of being a future champ in the octagon. Brady has grappling skills to go along with improved striking. So who do I think will win between Belal Muhammad and Sean Brady? I'm going to place my money on Muhammad. He really is one of the more underrated fighters in the welterweight division. And I expect big things off of him if he can go through maybe a 6-7 fight win streak. Currently right now is at 3. It's going to take a while for Muhammad to get there because he just doesn't come across as a star. But really, if he gets a win streak going on, he has to be part of the top 15. So this is coming in from The Sun. Like Mike, UFC boss Dana White signed it because he was scared. He scared the heck out of him and reminded him of a Mike Tyson. UFC Dana White has revealed he signed an MMA novice because he reminded him of a young Mike Tyson. So his name is Tafan. Sorry for the name here. Tafan Nchukwi. Apparently he scared Dana White with his knockout win over Almatavo. Tafan impressed UFC boss Dana White with a knockout over Matavo, and the 25-year-old heavyweight was one of the 10 athletes competing on UFC White's Dana White Contender Series, a show designed to funnel talent for the UFC. So Tafan fought in the main event on Tuesday, knocking out Matavio. Yet the Cameroonian, who has only been fighting professionally for a year, scored the biggest win of his young career with a savage second-round head kick. So Dana White goes on to say, "This guy reminds me of a Tyson-type figure. He's 4-0 with 4 knockouts. The last one was one of the most efficient knockouts I have ever seen." Speaking after the event, he said the guy reminds him of Mike Tyson, physically, visually, and obviously with his fighting style. Speaking to ESPN, White said, "I don't know what more you could look for in a guy who is going to be a professional fighter." So dang, a whole lot of stock is being placed on this guy right now. There is an image shown on ESPN MMA where Dana White is giving the googly eyes. He's giving the googly eyes on like the camera. And he's like, "Oh my goodness, what the heck, wow." And to be honest with you, it's not... So it's impressive for heavyweights in the first place to go get head kick knockouts in the first place. But even then, it's not really to ride home bouts. But you know what? Dana White, he sees something in him that I'm not. And for all we know, that guy could be the next big thing. And, oh man, so a fan favorite of mine's, Brad Katona. Brad Katona, this comes by MMA Junkie. Brad Katona admits he was perplexed by UFC release, but plans to keep beating top competition. This is being written by Farah Hanoun. While Brad Katona can't fathom why he was let go by the UFC, he says all he can do now is keep pushing forward. Katona, winner of Season 27 of The Ultimate Fighter, was released by the UFC in February after going 2-2 in the promotion. He defeated Jay Kunakelo, can't say his name properly, at TUF 27's first final. He was my pick to win for TUF 27. He defeated Matthew Lopez, but after suffering back-to-back losses to Merab Davishvili and Hunter Azur, the Dublin-based Canadian was cut from the roster. It was a surprise, Katona told MMA Junkie. It was a little bit of like, are you serious? I don't have much to say about it besides it was disappointing. And I caught a lot of people off guard. I went from winning 2 fights in the house against 2 guys who are now signed to the UFC, undefeated in the UFC, besides me, I guess, but those are exhibitions, so those don't count. It seems like they discounted those 2 fights in the house pretty quickly. He continued, "It doesn't make sense. It's not like I fought guys who are on the lower end of the UFC. I fought Merab, and he's now in the top 10. He's fighting Cody Stamann soon. He's gone. He's right now on a streak. And then I fought Hunter Azur, who I think I won the fight, but at the time, he was 9-0 or something. It's not like I'm going against the lower rank of the UFC ladder. They gave me 2 hard opponents, and I agreed. It's not just, but at the end of the day, if I want to get back in, it's about making myself undeniable, and that's what I'm going to do October 31. In September, Katona signed a multi-fight contract with Germany's Elite MMA Championship, EMC, and will challenge the organization's reigning bantamweight champion, Stipe Miocic, in the co-main event at EMC 6 on October 31. With wins over the likes of Kyler Phillips and Bryce Mitchell at the Tough House, Katona is out to prove that he's still an elite fighter and can hang in the top organizations. The goal is to keep beating top competition, and I've done it in my entire career. And if the UFC wants me, we'll go on that route. And if somebody else wants me, we'll go on that route, Katona said. I'm at a position right now where I just want to show what I have to offer, and this is the perfect stage to do it. It's going to be 5 rounds, so I have 25 minutes to show really my skill sets and why I believe I am a draw and a future star. Man, I like Katona. I do. He was my pick to win it for that tough season. And sadly, he's getting cuts. And I really wish for him to come back. I think it's unfair, because Nurmagomedov is a complete freak. He's a monster. The dude, without a doubt, will be among the top 10 in his division for the longest time. Alright, then Nurmagomedov is a complete monster. He ragdolled John Dodson. I think the guy right now, Nurmagomedov, currently has a record for most takedowns ever in UFC history. So yeah, I'm very shocked about that. But you know what? If Dana White or the UFC brass doesn't think Katona can go and stay put in the UFC, maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe this is a blessing where Katona, he lost 2 fights in a row, he goes out, he develops and becomes an even better fighter. Maybe, just maybe, this really was a blessing for him, and he can become a better fighter coming back. He's only 27 years old. So I can see him making a comeback. We've seen this story happen all the time, where fighters come back after being, released from the UFC. There are some fighters who I generally thought would not make a comeback, like Neil Magny. Even though he wasn't really released, he was gone for a while, and there's a period in time where one could have said that Neil Magny was over the hill, but now he's having his best run ever. So hopefully Katona can make a comeback. I hope for it to happen, and when it does, I'm going to be excited. So it's coming by MMA Junkie. Eddie Alvarez says, shouldn't have to prove myself, but I'll do what it takes for 1 title shot. You don't have to prove yourself, dude. Didn't you lose your debut? It's being written by Simon Samano. Eddie Alvarez isn't sure when or where he'll return to the One Championship cage, but he knows what he wants, and that's a title shot. He said, Alvarez, the former UFC and Bellator Lightweight champion, would love nothing more to do but add a 3rd major title back. He says that they said 1 or 2 fights, Alvarez recently told MMA Junkie. I don't even know what that means. Alvarez, 37, doesn't necessarily understand why he'd be in a position to have to prove himself, given what he's accomplished throughout his decorated career. I'll do what it takes. I want world championships and I want titles. I've always been patient, but I don't know, Alvarez said. I want bigger names and bigger fights if I haven't proven it in the past 17 years that I deserve bigger names and be on that massive stage and fight for world titles. You're just not watching the sport. If I can get in front of the champion, that'd be great. If not, I'll fight the number 1 contender and then get there. It is what it is. So Alvarez, his run in the... Alright, let's go over his run first. Okay. So he was immediately bounced in the first round of a tournament to Timothy Nagushin. Alvarez received a second chance, though, when he was named a replacement to fight against Foyle in the semifinals, submitting the former 2-time one title holder in the first round. This meant Alvarez gets his title shot at a tournament final against Sagid, if only he didn't have to withdraw because of an injury. So right now, Alvarez, he's 1-1 in 1 championship. Funny enough. Yeah, he's 1-1 in 1 championship. And I am never a fan, ever, of when fighters be like, you know what? I deserve X. You know why? Because a couple of years ago, I did Y. It's not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of it. It gets bothersome when fighters all the time always bring up past accomplishments for being the basis as to why they should go and get a title fight. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And so before I sign out here, let me go over the events real quick here. We have One Championship 116 coming in. It's Reign of Dynasties, October 9. October 10, we got Bellator 248, MVP versus Houston. Yep, so if you guys want to see MVP either get knocked out again, or you want to see him get another great victory, then there's that coming up October 10. Also on October 10, we got Bellator Europe 10, Congo versus Johnson 2. Another October 10 event, UFC and ESPN 37 with Mraz against Corey Sandhagen. And October 14, we got CES MMA 61. So a lot of events are coming up on specifically October 10. A whole lot of them. So let's go over each card now. First off, we got Michael Johnson against Houston. Michael Page against Ross Houston. Along with Emmanuel Dewa versus Oliver Enkamp. Alan O'Moore against Ryan Scope. And Darko Benovich against Mads Bernal. Michael Page, man, so he's trying to... He still has that one loss, though. He wants to go get a bounce-back loss fight against Lima. Ross Houston, he's actually a really underrated fighter, and this could really go either way. And for as much as I want to see Michael Page get knocked out, I'm placing my money right now for Michael Page winning the fights. And then we got Bellator Europe 10 also happening in the same card here. This will be taking place in Paris, France. We got Jake Congo against Timothy Johnson, along with RB Medizov against Saul Rogers. Hey, do any of you guys remember Saul Rogers, man? If you remember Saul Rogers, man, you really should keep an eye out for him. And they got here UFC and ESPN 37 with Marlos Moran against Corey Sandhagen, Edson Barbosa against Marwan Amirkhani, and Ben Rothwell against Marcin Tybura. Gonna say right now, Ben Rothwell versus Tybura will be a fight of the night. Not because it actually would be the best fight of the night, objectively speaking, it's because it's gonna be a scrapyard fight, and it'll be fun. It'll be the most fun fight out of the three. Obviously, Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen, that's gonna be the fight where they're like, oh my gosh, wow, it's so impressive, look at these guys. But Ben Rothwell and Marcin Tybura, that'll be my fight. That'll be, I'm the weirdo who's into Ben Rothwell fights for some strange reason. And for some reason, I type up Ben Rothwell, and instead of seeing Ben Rothwell, I'm seeing this girl named Beth in like really obscene pictures of herself. Not really sure why that's even happening. But apparently if you type in Ben Rothwell, you get a chick and you don't get a fighter. So Ben Rothwell, he explains his turmoil right now with the UFC. So he's competing in Fight Island 5 right now, and he thinks, he's actually said he's in a place right now where he's unsure of his future. He's pretty much, so he's disappointed after his fight against OSP. Ben Rothwell, he used to be a title contender. Now he's pretty much a journeyman and a gatekeeper for the UFC. And if you look at him right now, he is 2-3 in his past 5 fights. He's got really good performances against Stefan Struve and against OSP. I am not sure of what he can expect going forward, though, because Marcin Tybura, he is much lower in the rankings than either of them. He's also going off a 2-fight win streak. This fight is not going to end by knockout. It's going to be 3 rounds of action. We're seeing 2 big boys just scrap it. 2 big boys scrapping, throwing out everything out there, and we're going to see 2 heavyweights being like proper rock'em sock'em robots, man. And I can't wait for it. And that brings us to a close for today's podcast. You have been a great audience. We got a lot of events coming up for October 10, this Saturday. Get ready to watch a whole lot of MMA action. So thank you for listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask you, please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.